Final hour Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Jesse Palmer coming up here in a few moments. Chris Johnston later in the hour on the Leaf win in Winnipeg last night. What happens with the Leafs the rest of this week? What's up with Connor McDavid? Vancouver losing in overtime last night. Ottawa in action tonight. You know, these Canadian teams, who's at the top? You know, who's the pace car? I guess it's still Winnipeg. It probably should be. But a lot of question marks around these Canadian teams right now, a few weeks into the season. So CJ coming up a little bit later on. And, the trades in the NFL, a lot of trades going on. Kansas City loading up. Kansas City perfect on the season. Kansas City's going to be coming to Buffalo in a few weeks, too. And this is a really cool giveaway we want to announce right now that, as we know, Taylor's Toronto takeover is fast approaching, which means more traffic, more crowds, and way more screaming. And if you want to ditch the madness, OverDrive proudly presents Getaway from Tay-Tay. It's your chance to leave town and go see Travis instead. So to enter, it's simple. Visit tsn1050.ca, tsn1050.ca. Submit your very own OverDrive-themed song today, and you can submit lyrics, send an audio recording, even film a video if you're up for that challenge. And our favorite song will win tickets to see Kansas City versus Buffalo on November 17th, a hotel stay, and $500 spending cash. That's a giveaway right there. That's what we're talking about. Go down to Buffalo. What a game. Chiefs, Bills. That's in the 4 p.m. window, too. That's a great tailgate window.
How many guys have tickets with their significant other that are wanting this package now, saying, can you please find someone to go with you to Tay-Tay?
There will be a double shot of people going to see her and then making their way down to Buffalo to see her in the crowd watching Travis Kelce, because she'll be in Buffalo for sure on Sunday. Again, all the details at tsn1050.ca. And, Taylor Swift rapidly approaching, her arrival in town. Everyone's awaiting the madness, and it will be crazy.
Everyone. The police chief, I saw him on CP24 today. They're planning strategies for this.
They have to. Her effect on the economy alone.
I know. Yeah, that's what he said. He goes, we've never dealt with anything like this before.
Didn't we have a G20 in town? Like, that seems like it would be a little bit more of a security risk, than a concert.
It's more, though, think about the people that are renting hotels and that. I just went through this with my daughter. We just told her we're taking her to Vancouver for her birthday, and the hotel rooms it's embarrassing. The amount that they've
jacking prices, man.
We're talking $2,000 a night.
I understand that.
And apparently Airbnb and VRBO or whatever out there they've cut all that out. I don't know, BC government, whatever. But it's now the hotels even know that you have to prepay, no refunds, no nothing, and in a decent hotel downtown Vancouver, $2,000 a night for her concert that weekend. It's insanity.
It's a complete cash grab. I mean, her concert's a cash grab. Like everything's a cash grab. You can't just blame the hotels. Taylor Swift's not giving away stuff for free. No. It's not like, hey, you get a shirt, you get a hoodie. It's
a $7,500 venture. Man.
Absolutely.
It really
is.
So everyone else is like, if she's getting it, I'll get it too. I don't blame them.
But she's not the one that's on secondary markets jacking up the price.
No, of course
somebody
not.
buys a ticket or gets awarded a ticket for $300 and it's $3,000 on StubHub.
Yeah.
But the
people
prices
that take
are what they are because
advantage of
people
it
are
and
paying
jack
them.
everything up are pigs.
Well, but they're paying them though. Oh, like that's the free market.
Yeah.
Like the reason they're going for $3,000 is because someone's like, all right, I'll pay you $3,000.
I'll pay it.
Yeah. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like maybe you can get tickets last minute if they. An hour before the show, someone
halfway through the concert, somebody leaves and you could take their seat for $1,000. Like it's crazy.
It's crazy.
I got rinsed in Milan this summer.
I did the same thing in Detroit last year, man. It was outrageous, the price, and the same thing with the hotels. Anything that was in Detroit, dude. Detroit was
and
like
that was just
1,000
you and
American.
your wife too.
Yeah.
No kids.
Yeah. No, just the two of us. We ended up staying at a casino, which was great.
Well, of course.
The casinos
tracksuit on at 8:00 in the morning.
I was Paulie downstairs, but the casinos are like, we won't charge you anything. Come on in. Just regular pricing. Come on in, and then you dump it all into the felt. You end up spending twice as much. It's a brilliant operation.
It is. Yeah.
No, we're not gouging anyone. But if you come and look at our roulette table, we'd be happy to indulge, and maybe you play a little blackjack, and before you know it, you dump way more money into that, and hence why the buildings are what they are. But yeah, Kansas City, man, they're rolling right now. And I was looking up the stats this morning on where Mahomes is at, like just out of curiosity, because statistically he's not having a great year. He's not in the top 15 in yards or in touchdowns. Not in the top 15 for quarterbacks in the league. So yards thrown or touchdowns, and they're perfect. I think that's terrifying for everyone else in the league. I think it should be. Here's former NFLer, TSN football analyst, been on the show a bunch. We love having him on. Here's Jesse Palmer. How do you react to that, Jesse, when you see the stats? Like, Mahomes statistically is not having this out of this world season, yet the Chiefs look dominant and simply don't lose.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly a couple seconds ago. It's terrifying. That's what it is. And I think the question a couple of weeks ago was, is this sustainable for the Chiefs? Can they keep winning games if Mahomes is throwing more picks than TDs? It's absolutely sustainable because of how well their defense has been playing. That unit on that side of the ball this year, in terms of their ability stopping the run, getting off the field on third down, Spags, their D coordinator, he was our DC when I was with the Giants for my last year there. And he's so good at his third down packages and giving funky looks and exotic looks that are confusing offensive lines and quarterbacks. And Nick Bolton, Chris Jones, and that side of the ball right now is playing exceptionally well. And the reason why it's scary is because Mahomes is going to figure it out. I mean, now that you got Nuke Hopkins in there, Travis Kelce having a big game last week was huge for them, just for his confidence, for the offense, for the flow, to get those pieces back together. As Mahomes kind of starts to get the rhythm and starts to get this thing going, I mean, who's going to beat them? I mean, it is terrifying. And honestly, I was reading something this morning about Mahomes, and what makes it scary, not just now, but for years and years and years to come with that guy, is the fact that he's only 29 years old. He's locked up in his contract, I think, until like 2031 or something. And his contract right now, like if you average for a quarterback in the NFL, average salary for the year, for the duration of the contract, it ranks 12th in the NFL. Because of all the big contracts that have been happening these last couple of years at the position, Kansas City for years and years and years is going to have so much free cap space to get players around Mahomes for years. It's the same thing that happened to Tom Brady and the Patriots back in like 2006 and moving onward for him. It's like it's terrifying for everybody. But for this year specifically, just because of how well the defense is playing and because it's Patrick Mahomes, he's still the guy in the NFL you want with the ball late in the game when you're down, because he's still going to make the big play. It is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it really is. And I guess I'd ask you this. What is more likely to fall? Brady's GOAT status via Mahomes individually, or the dynasty that was the Pats via the dynasty that is the Chiefs?
I think it's probably the dynasty that was the Pats becoming the dynasty that is the Chiefs. It's kind of one and the same, though, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Because if the Chiefs are winning and they're winning Super Bowls, then Mahomes' GOAT status is going up and up and up. And it's so hard to fathom a quarterback winning 7 Super Bowls again or whatever and getting that to how many that Brady did. But when you just look at the tear that Mahomes is on early in his career and just the pieces that are in place in Kansas City, and I mean, there's Lamar and there's Baltimore, and every year we talk about that, and there's going to be other teams, around the AFC, and if Josh Allen and the Bills ever take the next step in the postseason, there are teams good enough to beat Mahomes in the postseason, no doubt about it. But it's just like last season. He's throwing a bunch of picks late in the year, and all of a sudden you get to the playoffs, and he just becomes Patrick Mahomes again. He's one of those rare individuals that plays his best when it matters the most, and I think that's part of what makes him so special.
Jesse, you mentioned other quarterbacks signing big-ticket deals. Like, does the Dak Prescott one stick out where you're looking at the number and watching him play and you're saying that just none of this adds up?
Yes. And what I saw against the 49ers, unlike Mahomes, right? We just talked about Mahomes. That's the guy you want with the ball in his hands late in the game, right? When you're down, he's just going to find a way in a 2-minute situation. That's the thing that Dak Prescott has not been able to do consistently throughout his career. He had an opportunity against the 49ers this past week in that exact situation. And all you can ever ask for in the NFL as a quarterback is just for a chance. And that's when you need franchise players to step up and make the plays. And he didn't do it this past weekend. He didn't do it back in the divisional round of the playoffs back in 2021, same situation. He didn't do it in the playoffs in 2022, I think against the Niners, same situation. And so when you're paying a guy that much money, you just have to be able to step up and make those plays. You know, the 49ers are the team to beat, or at least have been the team to beat in the NFC. That's the dominant powerhouse in that conference. Prescott's 0-4 against them. So your best player in the games that matter the most, in the moments that matter the most, you have to be able to deliver. You have to elevate all those around you. That's what the greats at the position always are able to do. He has not consistently yet been able to do that, and that's what worries me. It's not even – I mean, when you look at the contract, you think to yourself, oh, my God, we need more. And he'll say that. He's been saying that at the podium after games now for weeks. But if you're starting in the NFL, you've got to be better in 2-minute situations with the game on the line. That's part of what makes the position so difficult, and Dak has not been good enough yet in that category.
Jesse, talking about your former team, can you just explain from a technical standpoint what you saw last night on that 2-point conversion? Because, I mean, what the hell was going on there? Whose fault is all of that? And what is the fallout of something like that in the video meetings the next day?
I mean, it's a total debacle is basically what it is. And it's like, hey, you're trying to get cute. And you're sending out a bunch of offensive linemen out in front of neighbors, and you're going to kind of snap it and throw it out. And it's one of those deals. It's like if the play works, the play caller is a genius, but there's not a great chance of it working. So you have to kind of balance that out. Like when Andy Reid has Kansas City like playing like Ring Around the Rosie or whatever they were doing that one time where everybody's in the huddle and they're rolling around and you snap the ball and somehow it works. It's great. I think sometimes for coaches in the NFL, I think just in sports in general, you can get paralysis by analysis. You sometimes overthink things. And obviously things are bad. Like they're terrible. As a former Giant myself, like it's hard to watch each and every week. But, I mean, and so, like, the regular stuff that you installed on day one of minicamp right now, like, we're not executing that. And so down in the red area, 2-point plays, whatever it is, you're trying to get creative and get things to work. That was terrible. That play basically summarizes the season if you're a New York Giant. That was just awful.
Yeah, it was. And yet, 2-6, familiar territory, and – I see a lot of Giants fans looking around the league, short leash on quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, highly touted draft picks. Bryce Young, we just saw him go through it. Anthony Richardson just got pulled. Sorry, can't do that. Got to move on. Yet Danny Dimes, just a formality. The guy plays every week, never wins, never puts up numbers, just gets to keep playing. Like, are you surprised at all by that there's seemingly no conversation about his security as their QB1 in New York?
I'm not surprised by it. I'm sure there are conversations internally inside the building about that. But the truth is, honestly, guys, if you've watched the offensive line play in New York, especially since Andrew Thomas went down at left tackle, it is so bad that I don't know if it would make a difference regardless of who was back there. Maybe if you had like an uber athletic guy, if the Giants somehow had a Jaden Daniels type dude or no one's going to have a Lamar, but if you had a guy that could run around a little bit and like a Malik Willis or someone that could maybe just kind of make chicken salad out of what, but the Giants don't have that guy. Like Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, they're the same guy as Daniel Jones. They're not the same size necessarily, but they're all pretty much the same guy. They're going to have to play from the pocket. I don't know who would be successful out there. There's obviously a lot of pressure based on the contract that he just got 2 years ago to let him ride this thing out and see what happens at the end of the year. But honestly, I think he, like, as sad as it is to say this, he's still their best chance. And that's not good.
Jesse, Bryan just mentioned Richardson and his comments about being tired, so he pulled himself. Did you ever think that you would hear something like that?
No. Here's the thing with Anthony Richardson, too. I mean, they've made the right decision to go to Joe Flacco now, for sure.
Well, what do you do with him long term?
Well, they're calling it a growth opportunity, and you sit him for a while and let him watch Joe Flacco operate. I think you have to. Listen, I'm a Richardson fan because I'm a former Gator, so is he. I've been watching him a long time, called his games, but he has all the things you can't coach: size, he can throw it 80 yards, he can run, and that's great. But he also misses the 8-yard out route on third down, and he misses drag routes on third down against man coverage. And those are throws you just have to be able to hit in your sleep. If you're the starting quarterback on an SEC team or you're the fourth pick of the draft, you got to do that. And they can't. And the thing is, every game the Colts have played has been a one-possession game this year, every single one. So the margin of error in Indianapolis right now is so tiny. And you're not going to win when your quarterback can't complete 50% of his throws, period. I mean, they were struggling to win even when Joe Flacco was in the game lighting it up. So, just from an execution standpoint, it's not good enough. And honestly, guys, I don't know if he'll ever be able to hit the drag route. If it's a fundamental thing or if it's just accuracy is just like that. But you can't take yourself out of games when you're playing that poorly throwing the ball. And so if you're going to keep pace with Houston right now in the division, especially after Diggs goes down with an ACL and Nico Collins is still out, you got to make the move to Flacco. That's your only shot.
With Jesse Palmer, speaking of Houston, they're in New York playing the Jets on Thursday night, and the Jets are favored. They're like a 2-point favorite going into this game. We have spoken so much about this team. They haven't done anything forever. 2-6, awful start. They just lost to New England.
How are they favored, Bryan?
Well, I think like Jesse said, with some injuries at the receiver position, it's a short week. Houston's playing well. They're winning games, but they've been in tight games. And I would assume the books are thinking it's impossible for the Jets to start 2-7. I think they're wrong on that. It just screams dysfunctional there. I don't see how they turn the ship around. Where do you stand on the Jets in general, but furthermore, the future of Aaron Rodgers and what you believe he's going to look like the rest of the year in New York?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them turning around either. But the reason why we all keep wondering if it can happen is because it's probably the best roster they've had in 25 years. At least Woody Johnson, the owner, keeps saying that. Mm-hmm. But it's not showing up. And, I mean, they've tried to identify every single possible reason why it hasn't. First, it was the head coach. Then you're changing the play caller. We're blaming Mike Williams at the end of games for running the wrong routes in the last play. We're bringing in Devontae Adams. Hassan Reddick's now back on the field. It doesn't matter. And ultimately, like we talked about with Dak Prescott and with Patrick Mahomes, it's going to have to come to the quarterback, and he's just going to have to play better. And Rodgers is just going to have to do that. Isn't it interesting, though, how every single week now we're starting to hear more and more players, opponents, the Jets play after the game go, Rodgers just isn't the same guy that we're used to seeing. He's not playing the same. And I don't think the NFL fears Aaron Rodgers anymore the way they did when he was a Green Bay Packer. I just don't think that. And you're watching the game last week, and they're wasting timeouts. They take a delay a game penalty on a 2-point play because Rodgers didn't like the look and he didn't want to waste another timeout, so he took the delay a game. Like, rookie quarterback wouldn't do that. Rodgers gets away with it because he's Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. But, listen, I know Diggs is out and Collins is out. We're wondering why the Jets are favored. I don't know why. I mean, the Jets, they've given up 85 points their last 3 games. And Jeff Albrecht, who was my old teammate in San Francisco, he's now the interim head coach. He's still trying to call defense, but with all the added responsibilities now of being the head man, I think that's going to have to change. He's going to have to delegate that and give that to somebody else. So you'll have a new offensive play caller. I'd expect there's going to be a new defensive play caller. I don't know why they're favorites. They've lost 5 in a row, and it doesn't look like it's turning anytime soon. I don't think.
No, I'm with you on that. Well, we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. It's a soap opera. It'll be a great episode. I have no doubt about that on Thursday. Great catching up with you, Jesse. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
You too, guys. Appreciate you.
Jesse Palmer, TSN NFL analyst, college analyst. He's on shows. He's everywhere, man. Jesse Palmer is everywhere.
And he's on your side when it comes to Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I think the way he described it is accurate, that he's not scaring people anymore.
Right.
And that's the first thing to go, right? Is we talked about Tiger forever, Tiger Woods, where guys were
scaring
terrified.
people is all based on performance.
Right.
It is, but that's it. Like if you're watching him, like he's still Aaron Rodgers, and there's an aura, and then you get out there and you watch him make a few throws, and he doesn't look right, and they're all disheveled and wasting timeouts, and I think the opponent's like, oh, this guy doesn't have it, man. And that was my point. Is not that he's lost talent completely or whatever. I think he's a little bit scared because of the Achilles. I think he's throwing balls away. He's afraid to take hits. Like that's natural. That's human nature.
Well, put it all together, Brian. He's 40 years old. He had an Achilles injury last weekend. He showed up 30 seconds before the season started and said hi to everybody and said, "Let's play." Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Doesn't like the O-line. O-line isn't good. Like it's just a recipe for disaster.
No kidding. It's because they allowed it, though. Like a guy that's coming off an Achilles, you can't have a guy in your locker room that dictates when he's going to show up and when he isn't. You know how many of those tryouts or not tryouts, those workouts that Tom Brady was at?
Yeah.
Like he was he did miss some for special things, but for the most part he was there. It's just like that's the way it works.
Yeah. I just think near the end too, like I remember a buddy telling me Wayne Gretzky's last year, like keep in mind Wayne Gretzky scored 9 goals his last year in 70 games. And he told me he lined up against him off an opening draw. And apparently centerman, you dig in, but you give the guy across from you a cross check off the draw. And he said he cross checked Gretzky and it was like hitting like a frail old guy. And he crumpled and he was like, my God, like that's Wayne Gretzky. And he said it wasn't the same aura around Gretzky like that last year when he was retiring. I think what he had is 60 points or whatever. He still had 60 points, but he wasn't the same. I think Aaron Rodgers is just not the same. He's just not the same quarterback.
Not even close.
Seen. Yep.
Right.
That's it. Exactly. And yet held to the standard of his prime because of who he is and his reputation.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, he's in the worst organization you could be in when you need to rely on that organization because they're completely unreliable. They're a mess. And we've got that game on Thursday. I guess we have to take Houston. Although that would be one of the great picks of all time if we took the Jets and they covered. Luke's head would be in a
What's the
pretzel.
spread, though? What's the spread
Jets
right now?
are 2-point favorites. Ooh. New York is a 2-point favorite.
What's the other turkey's head? Where is his head at?
I haven't spoken with him yet. He and
really?
I will
haven't even discussed the game at all.
We'll have our weekly in-person meeting tomorrow.
The friggin' Bister?
The friggin' Bistard.
Yeah, we'll find that out. He might be on the. I wouldn't put anything past Al's brother. He's seeing the board very clearly right now.
He's on the Jets. I'm telling you.
It could be that is a chess move, right? Yeah. You guys are playing checkers. We could be playing chess, talking smack about the Jets.
I wouldn't be shocked if you do take the Jets because I know he is going to talk you into saying they are actually the favorites, and this is why.
It's possible.
I don't know.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes of it. We'll get to that on Thursday. All right, CJ coming up. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel still to come as well. Game 4 of the World Series tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Chris Johnston coming up here in a moment. Still no word from Edmonton in terms of any news on McDavid. We know he flew with the team to Nashville, then he flew back to Edmonton. Which I didn't quite understand.
Probably something tomorrow. I think, the team would have flown out today to Nashville.
Okay.
It was spent the night. You're not flying, like at 11 o'clock last night. They don't play till Thursday.
Right.
So I think you're probably staying last night in Columbus and then flying today. And I think he would have flown home and gotten an MRI.
I wonder if they got a win last night. Did they fly to Nashville last night? Try to sneak in last call.
Getting an hour back. I think you get an hour back.
I think you might. Yeah,
I guess that's probably not a long flight. Eh?
No,
Columbus
it's not.
to Nashville's probably an hour. Flight. You gain an hour.
Dude, there's
right?
nothing more hilarious than landing in the other city, taking the bus, and then as soon as you check your bag into your room, you go down to the lobby, and there's 15 other guys down in the lobby looking for a taxi.
Hal Gill. It's basically the bag chucker.
The
Oh,
bag
yeah.
chuck.
Yeah. I arranged a couple times. I'd tell the bus driver, do me a favor, drop us off, do a loop around the corner, and then just sit and wait because the boys are coming back on the bus.
Wow. Do you remember the guy in L.A., Anaheim, Mike? The guy's been there 100 years. Like he's
Dude,
literally
he was a legend. He's the guy that parked in front of Harry O's and a guy rammed his car and T-boned the bus, and he was crapping his pants because he's like, I'm not supposed to be in here with you guys, and this guy T-boned the bus.
Yes, I ran into him last year. I saw him.
Is he still doing it?
He's still doing it for the away teams. He gave me a big hug. I had a great stop and chat with him. I'm like, my God, this guy took us on our rookie dinner, and we had rookie dinners with him and team parties and stuff. This guy he's an absolute legend. He does L.A. and Anaheim for all.
He was the only bus
teams.
driver who mandatory had a case of beer on ice on the back of the bus, no matter what. Like usually you'd have to pay the locker room attendant to do it. That guy always bussed beer, full case on ice. It didn't matter.
He came and picked us up on an off day one time and took us into L.A. Took us out as a team. The bus was outside. Yeah, that is unbelievable.
So he would go in the bars and stuff with you guys?
Yes, he was in Harry O's with us, and a guy T-boned his bus, and you could see his undershorts just starting to melt. Because he's like, A, I'm not supposed to be here, and B, the bus isn't supposed to be here.
The bus is definitely not supposed to be on, Sunset with the boys.
Oh,
and I'm sure you guys got out of there so fast, too. Taxi, see you later.
Yeah,
all right, here's Chris Johnston, our TSN hockey insider. What's happening, CJ?
I was enjoying those stories. Keep them rolling.
Those are great, man. The bus driver, the keeper of the bus in L.A. has to hit the town with the boys. Gotta love that stuff. Yeah, I mean, this McDavid stuff, obviously best player in the world. Whenever he goes down, everyone's on edge, but the suspense is killing us here, CJ. We need an answer. What's going on with this guy? When would you expect they're going to make some sort of an announcement? And will it come from the Oilers? Would it come from McDavid, his camp? Where do you see this going?
I would imagine it will be from the team and probably at some point tomorrow. I mean, I suppose there's always a chance it's a little later tonight, just with the time difference to Edmonton, but part of this, quite honestly, is the sense I'm getting is McDavid and the Oilers themselves just don't know. They don't have full clarity on what he's dealing with. And, he had to fly back to Edmonton today, to meet with doctors, get some imaging done, go through the process with the medical team. And so obviously that just takes a little bit of time. But, in the short term here, I think we can safely infer that, there's some concern just given the fact that he's had to return home to get those kind of diagnoses and to go through that process. And, just even the fact he only completed one 37-second shift last night after going in with his left skate first. Not just you guys that are on high alert. I think everyone around Edmonton is, and, even with Team Canada and everything, everyone wants to get a sense of how long or short term this is. But at this point, we just don't have enough clarity on that to say.
CJ, do you have any other kind of feelings from around the league, different executives or just hockey people on the Oilers? I'm a little bit concerned about what they've been doing. It hasn't been good, and it's not been a 5-game stretch. It's basically been since the start of camp. Is there any rumblings, what the thoughts are on the Oilers and what they're doing?
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot of concern just yet. I think just because of what they did last year has bought them maybe a little bit of, patience or everyone just remembers that they were 2-9-1 into November and then, had some ridiculously long winning streaks in the regular season, go all the way to the Cup final. I mean, I think that given, that track record, it's probably bought them maybe a little bit more, or or less panic or concern about where they're at. But I mean, you're getting into a compounding factor here. I mean, don't want to go too deep down to hypothetical, but if McDavid's not available for a little while, that obviously impacts what they're doing. I mean, defensively, I do think that they're a team that as the season goes along are going to look to upgrade their blue line. It just hasn't come together for them just yet. So I'd say that the sort of sentiment I've got in discussions about the Oilers is that let's just wait and see here. Let's not go too crazy. But we're almost at November, and if it goes on too much longer, and depending on what's going on with this injury situation, I could see some of that concern maybe creeping in, beyond just yourself, Jeff.
With Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider, we were chatting about Matthew Knies earlier and how well he's playing. He got his 5th goal last night playing with the top line. Where do you think things stand with him and the team in terms of his future here, and how important do you think it is for the Leafs and Brad Treliving to maybe try to work some sort of long-term extension out with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that will happen at some point. I mean, and certainly he's a player the organization values and likes. I don't get the sense that there's been too much done in terms of, trying to get that extension done right now. And if you're in Knies' shoes and you're in his camp, I think you probably look at the start and, he's off to a pretty good one. He's obviously in a good spot in the lineup playing with Matthews and Marner to have, what will probably be a year that exceeds the numbers he put up last year in his first full season. So I think if you're him, there's just not a lot of reason to force this or to try to see anything happen. So, at this point, I think that both sides are open to having those discussions. It doesn't seem like they're happening yet in a meaningful way. We'll see. Now they got the business done with Jake McCabe. Maybe the Leafs do turn their attention there, but I think they're going to have to do something pretty strong to compel him to sign before seeing exactly what he is as an NHL player. I mean, if this is a 40-point season, it's one thing in his negotiations. If it's a 60 or above point season, I mean, he's just so young in his career that obviously the Leafs would be projecting the way we've seen other teams do it. I mean, you look at Slavkovsky, Gunther. I mean, all those players signed long-term extensions, and relatively recently with teams that hadn't even seen them play 100 NHL games yet. I mean, that's kind of the same place you're at roughly with Knies. And, I think there's a lot of guessing involved there. But, in the here and now, I mean, it's obvious that he's taken a step this year, looks more comfortable on the ice. We're seeing him exert himself physically and use that size in ways that's been productive, and he's put the puck in the net when he's had some looks around it. So, I think he's feeling good, and, I don't know that there's necessarily any urgency there just yet, but we'll see if that comes along.
CJ, is it too early for trade chatter or the market heating up with any type of guys being front and center? I mean, we were chatting the other day about Timothy Lilligren. Nick Robertson was a healthy, or at least some conversations you think being had out there with managers?
Definitely. And if there's one thing we know about Brad Treliving specifically is there's not anything that he doesn't like, at least workshopping, having those discussions. He's always known as a GM that, inquires about a lot of players, gets into hypothetical conversations about his own players. And, I think with Lilligren specifically, I mean, the Leafs will have to ease their cap picture at some point when their guys get healthy, that are starting to make their way back into practices and, trending towards rejoining the lineup. So I think the issue with Lilligren is a couple things. I mean, for one, a lot of teams around the league still are healthy enough on their own blue lines. Maybe you haven't had those kind of openings been created. You have those teams thinking maybe players in the lineup are just as good as Lilligren, and they don't see him as an upgrade just yet. And so I think it'll probably be a little bit yet before, we see any activity, whether it's with Timothy or somebody else. But, I do get the sense that there actually is a fair bit of chatter, even this early in the year. A lot of teams have identified some needs early that they feel they're going to have to address. It's just, we haven't seen a trade yet. I think that, the market isn't certainly fully formed, but, when we're looking at the Leafs, they are going to have to clear cap space one way or another when they start getting healthy, and we're starting to see some of those players back at practice. So, time's ticking a little bit.
Yeah, the case of Timothy Lilligren is quite something, man. I mean, 2-year deal, $3 million. He's played one game. They had Myers go in over him. They obviously like other guys, and Benoit is playing every single night. It doesn't seem like he's in competition to come out of the lineup. That could change. Connor Timmins, for whatever reason. I don't think he's played poorly, but Craig Berube favors him. How do they get out from under this if they're not even going to play him and showcase him throughout the league?
Well, I think they have to hope that maybe a need arises somewhere else. I mean, and I don't think they've ruled out playing him either. It hasn't been good so far. He's only been in one of their 10 games, so that speaks for itself. But I don't get the sense that there's no chance we're going to see him play at some point. And really what's happened is the organization has improved itself. If you look at it with guys who can play the right side. I mean, that was, I think, a perceived weakness of the Leafs for a long time. But now with McCabe's played over there a fair bit this season. Obviously, they got their top four signed with Tanev in that spot, and then they like the options they have for the third pairing right-hand guy better, whether it's a Timmins, Myers briefly played the game in Boston, and then maybe Jani Hakanpää, when he gets to a spot where he can play. So, I think it's really just got to a point where they don't see a natural fit for Lilligren in this lineup. Obviously, the change of coach, changes some things for him because, Berube's been a little less, he's been more reluctant to play him. So all those factors I do think point eventually to him moving on, but how and when that happens still kind of remains to be seen here.
How would you project the goaltending to play out, let's say, the next week or so? They play Seattle Thursday, at St. Louis Saturday, at Minnesota Sunday, at home to Boston on Tuesday. So 4 games in basically 6 nights. Do you think it's a split? Do you think Joseph Woll has a chance to play more than that? How do you see this working out moving forward?
Yeah, I think ideally they'd like to get Woll up and running a little bit more. Obviously he's played just the 1 game since he got healthy, and the team lost a game. So I think the big picture, they're definitely cognizant of not trying to overtax Stolarz, who's performed pretty well for them earlier in the season, but it's not someone who's played at this kind of frequency ever in the NHL, basically. And so I see it ideally going as a split, but I think some of that will be on, depending on what they see when Woll gets back in the net and, where his game's at, how he's feeling physically and all those sorts of things, just given the layoff that he had to start the year. So I'd say best case picture is they're splitting those games up and probably getting closer to a 50-50 run for a little while, but performance and health, I think, will ultimately dictate how those starts fall.
TJ, I just saw a tweet, the Penguins lineup, and they've got Crosby and Malkin on the top line. I don't know how this plays out. They do not look very good this year. They look the same as they did last year. Do you have an understanding or have knowledge of one, like Sidney said, I'm going to sign an extension, and if we're junk continuing going forward, I'm cool with that? Because that looks like that's what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, I think that there's no scenario that I can imagine that we're talking about him ever getting traded in season. So I'd start there, but he did sign a 2-year extension for the 2 years beyond this year, in the off season, with the idea that it could give him a window to remain in there for his whole career. But I think they're going to have to, basically reevaluate that each off season. And, I'm with you. It's the early signs are not good for Pittsburgh. They just come through Western Canada, having lost all 4 games they played on the road trip. The goaltending is to the point where their starter is down in the AHL making conditioning starts. They're rolling out a 22-year-old kid in Blomqvist. And so, none of these signs are encouraging ones for a team trying to get back to the playoffs. But, the Crosby question, I just don't think will be answered really until next summer at the earliest. Clearly it's his preference to be a Penguin for life, but, if this ends up being a disastrous season and they miss the playoffs by a lot, I mean, he's going to really have to decide along with the organization how he wants to proceed because, a player of that stature, I can't imagine is, enjoying missing the playoffs at this stage of his career. The thing I think that drives him more as much as anyone is the chance to win, and they just don't seem to be a team that are going to give him that chance.
CJ, who's hurting more, you or Pierre, about this debacle in Dallas?
I'd say Pierre because he's older and he's got more years of inflicted abuse. So, it's not to say that I'm happy about it, but I feel like he's been through a little bit more. I mean, I know he always comes across as stoic when he's on with you guys about it, but I think I bet if you're in his living room on Sunday night or whenever they're playing, not the happiest place to be when they're losing games like they did against San Fran.
No question.
Oh,
He plays it so cool. Like, totally didn't care at all. Like, it's.
I still love him.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
It's totally fine. Yeah. Like, he flew down there and watched them, I think the New Orleans game, get pumped. Like, that's an investment, man.
He was
fly
probably
down there.
fighting fans.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Wow.
That would have been a disgusting trip to take. And it
There
seems
was once a game, it was probably 10 years ago, and I was in a bar with Pierre and some of his buddies that aren't media guys, and they were all cheering against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys had a bad loss, and Pierre stormed into the bar and threw about $500 in cash across the room, like just splashed it to make his point that he was paying for everyone's drink, but he wasn't happy with it. So I've definitely seen he's probably mellowed out. He's got kids now, and he does have other priorities in his life, but I've seen him throw some Cowboys-related tantrums in the
I
past.
love it. That's a true fan, man. He is a true believer. He loves the Cowboys, and we'll see. There's still a long season, man. They're still in the hunt, technically, for a wild card spot anyway. We'll see what comes of it. Thank you, Chris. We'll do it again soon.
All right, boys. Have a good night.
Chris Johnston joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, our TSN Hockey Insider. Yeah, a lot of season left. Only week 9. You guys, Timo and Wilson +2, but what a battle we've had. Hayes and Bro seeing the board very well. Very well.
When you think about Mahomes and them, is there like you said this with Jesse, like it is scary. Mahomes hasn't hit his stride yet, and they're undefeated.
Yeah. That's the thing, Noodles. Like they are a tough team. That's what's kind of scary. Like you think of Andy Reid, you think of crazy offensive playbook and creativity, and Mahomes is going to do all these crazy plays and no look passes. And when Tyreek Hill was there, it was over the top. Like that's not even who they are anymore. They just beat you up.
Yeah,
like
but what if they start becoming some kind of hybrid of that? They're unstoppable.
Unstoppable because their defense is so good, their offensive line is so good. They create a run game that can do it, and then if DeAndre Hopkins and Kelsey and Xavier Worthy and Mahomes pop, how do you stop it?
Dude, they pulled the guy Kareem Hunt off the practice squad, and he's scoring 2 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That's
off
just the offensive line,
squad.
man. Offensive line just beats you up at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And then when it's all said and done, Mahomes could just say, screw it, man. Give me the ball. I'll figure it out. And terrifying. There's the odds on FanDuel. Like Chiefs are +450. Ravens and Lions +650. I'm surprised the Niners are ahead of the Bills. Like the Bills are going to cruise to the playoffs because their division is so bad. The Niners, I think, will win that division, but it's not a lock at this point. Buffalo's in a good spot. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel coming up on Game 4 of the World Series. We'll tee it up. We'll do that next. All right, today's Best Bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm bullish on the Yankees tonight. Probably shouldn't be based on what's happened here, but I don't think they're going to get swept on the Yankees. Fine, done. On it.
Wow.
Take it. I'm on the Yankees tonight. Aaron Judge to record a hit and a strike or a foul on the first pitch tonight to Shohei Ohtani. You have to challenge him tonight. You have to step in and say, I'm throwing smoke at you. Hit it if you can.
Yes, you've got one arm.
Yes, you have to, man. You have to. And that's paying +314. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. The first inning means as much as the ninth when you bet baseball on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 18+, physically located in Ontario. Scotty Barnes not traveling with the team on the road. He took that elbow to the eye last night. It looked bad. You get worried about that with the way he was kind of walking off, shades
You
of
didn't know where he was.
Yeah, just
I
like
don't know.
turns into like a head injury more than an eye injury. But yeah,
But at the same time, Hayes, you've seen guys get hit like that and walk right off like nothing happened.
yeah, it can go both ways. But he was really kind of bent out of shape the way he was leaving the court there. He played well last night. Scotty had himself a night, and it wasn't enough to get the win. So Raptors will be in action. We'll see if there's a Game 5 of the World Series. Leafs back in action on Thursday. That crowd in Winnipeg, a lot of Leaf fans, man, a lot of Leaf fans show up. And they were going nuts last night. Go Leafs, go chants.
Throwing
in
their
your
hats
building.
on the ice when John Tavares got the hat trick.
Yeah, more hats than maybe when Connor scored his hat trick.
And I don't know. I view more like Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, the Leafs fans really showing up, but they were there. There was a bunch of them there last night in Winnipeg.
Yep. Big time, man.
Well,
Big time.
Winnipeg's attendance hasn't, they've been close to sellouts, I believe, but not sold out.
Mm-hmm.
I think the attendance has been up throughout the league, but I believe Winnipeg's has just been under sellout.
A little bit
How do
short.
you not get out and watch that team play right now? Come on, guys.
Playing well.
Listen,
Playing well.
Stretched economy right now for a lot of people, so
Yeah.
it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Not for Taylor Swift, evidently, but
No.
for the Jets.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, that was a big win for the Leafs last night. Big win. More on that tomorrow as we move forward to the game on Thursday with Seattle in town, and Thursday night football as well. The Jets and the Texans. We'll look ahead to that starting tomorrow as well. All right, thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out, everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate it. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Congrats to my Sharks and myself. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.